Hi guys, welcome to the in-depth instructional video for our Stirling 00 car. Can't wait to show you how to make this guy. This has been a lot of work going into this and I just can't wait so that you can create something really cool like this that you can keep your whole life. Let's get started. So this is our Stirling 00 kit. As you can see, these are all the components that you get in the box. So you've got three different types of sandpaper, 80 grit, 120 grit, and 180 grit. So that's rough, medium, and fine. Let's put those to one side. I've got this little block here to use as a sanding block because you're really going to need it for this, but you need to get yourself a little piece of wood like this to use as a sanding block. I think it's a lot better if you do that. Then you've got the front of the car, middle of the car, and the back of the car, the base of the car, the little man that goes in it, the axles. You've got some veneer here to attach to these components here, 4 wheels, 4-wheel inserts, 4 washers, and 4 hubcaps here as well. Then over here we've got our Osmo finishing kit. This is a little packet of Osmo, a pot, a stirrer stick, a couple of cloths, and some gloves. So that's what you should have in your kit before you start. So let's show you how to put it together. So before we get started, we don't need these wheel inserts for now, so I'm just going to move those over to one side. What we really want to do is get everything nicely sanded down. So we're going to do that before we start. I'm going to start with the base here. You can see it's been roughly cut like this, so you're going to need to sand that off. So I'm going to start with an 80 grit piece of paper, just put it flat on my bench like this and just rub it back and forward gently. And that should take off any kind of straggly bits or anything like that. Make sure you keep it nice and flat because we're going to stick the other components to this and we want to make sure it's flat. But make sure you've got rid of any straggly bits like that, okay? Now that'll do for now on that piece. We'll come back to it later on. The same on these pieces as well. Just give the bottoms a sand, back and forward on a nice flat surface, and then just go around and take off any of the straggly bits like so. Okay, that'll do for now. Okay, great. I'm using the P80. This is the roughest sandpaper, and that'll do fine for us now. Okay then, so the rest of the pieces, I'm just going to move those to one side for now, and we're going to focus entirely in on this. Now, if I show you the finished car, this is what we're aiming to get to. And if I hold this up to the camera, you can see the angle on the back here is nice and curved like this. Also on the front here, this car is curved all the way over. Hopefully you can see that. And I've sanded that all down by hand. So you've got a rough shape here, but of course you're going to want to sand it down as well. So what you want to do first of all is focus on the front part here to get that curve in here. And then the back part here, you want to start curving that over as well. But before we do that, it's usually a good idea to get the veneer and put that on. As you can see, it's bigger than the piece like this. And you're going to have to sand that back to get it to fit. So once you start sanding everything, you want to sand both of these things together. So I suggest you start by sticking these on like this. So that's what I'm going to do. Now, obviously, you can use a PVA glue like this one and put some PVA on the parts. You can put the veneer here, then get some masking tape to hold it in place and then leave it overnight to set and then come back to it, or maybe even a couple of hours. And the same on this piece here. But because of the purpose of this video, I'm going to use super glue for this car, which works perfectly well. Okay then, so I'm going to get my super glue here and I'm just going to put, it's far too much I've put on there, so I'm just going to try and spread that out. Just put a tiny bit all the way over like so, tiny bit like this. Okay, and then I'm going to get my piece nice and straight. And I want it to hang off on all 4 edges, okay? So you can see here it's hanging off the end on all 4 edges. Now I'm going to push hard now and wait for about 30 seconds for that to set. Okay, that looks pretty good to me, so I'll just leave that on one side. Now next I'm going to do this one here. I can see some little stragglers just hanging on there, so I'm just going to get rid of those just in case it causes a problem. That's it. Okay, and then we're going to do this bit here. Now when I apply the glue, I'm not applying it to the very edges because it will naturally squeeze out a little bit. So, and we don't really want to see the glue if we can avoid it. Same if you're using PVA, just use a really thin amount of glue. Okay, now I'm going to put this here. Now same again, you want it to hang over on all 4 sides, so make sure you've done that. and then hold it in position nice and tightly, push it hard, and hold it for about 30 seconds. Okay, so I'm going to leave that to one side to set. Okay, there's quite a lot of extra sticking out here that we're going to need to sand down. It's quite a lot to do by hand, but you know, we can do it. So we're going to get our 80 grit, the roughest paper. I'm going to wrap it in a block like so. Just fold the edges over like this, or maybe a bit more. Fold it like so, and over like this. And then I've got myself a good sanding block. And then I'm just going to work it back and forwards until I've taken off this entire edge like this. And I'll come back to you when I've done that all the way around. Okay, so I've sanded this back now to match the edges. Take special note here, where this is at an angle, I've kept it straight here. I wanted to keep it nice and straight. So I just had to go back and forward there just to make sure I kept this sharp edge, because when it goes onto the car here, you want it to touch at the bottom. Can you see that? Touch at the bottom. There we go. Okay then. I've also done it with this component here. I've just sanded it flat to all the sides. So now that we've done that, we want to start putting the shape into our body. And this is just a simple case of getting, let's move my car here, of getting a piece of sandpaper like this, and we're just going to work it back and forwards. I'm going to start off by taking off the corners. Now it's very important you don't take off the corners on the bottoms, okay? Because when it sticks here, you'll have a gap. So you shouldn't be sanding the bottoms like this, okay? So we're just going to focus on the front of the car, and I'm going to work it back and forward. Just keep going bit by bit by bit. And then once I've taken the first sharp edge off, as you can see here, then we start to build our shape. So I'm just going to do that bit by bit. Okay, brilliant. So that's the first edge taken off. But now what I want to do is add a rounded shape to it. Now, because they're pretty tricky to hold, these parts, I think it's easier if you put it onto the car and then you can work the car as a whole. So I'm just going to do a bit of work on the back here just to take this edge off, and then I'm going to stick it onto the car. So I'll come back to you when I've done that. Okay then, so that's the first kind of base part done. We've got our veneers attached on, and then you've got the middle bit of the car here. Now this middle bit goes in between like this, and the car should fit on. Now this bit here, if I put it together, if I were to glue this in position right now, you can see the back is just hanging off a bit. So what we need to do is make this bit here a little bit smaller. So again, get a piece of sandpaper, lay it flat on the edge, and just work at it to get this piece to fit properly. Okay, just back and forward. It doesn't matter about the grain direction on this because you're not going to see it. Okay, let's do a test fit. Put this bit into here. Make sure everything's lined up there. And then put that onto the front there. Okay, still a bit to go. Still a bit to go. So now I'm going to sand a little bit off the front of the walnut. Now I've used the 120 grit paper there, but I'm going to go back to the 80 grit because I want to remove material quickly. Okay, so I'm sanding with the grain as well. It's important to note. Okay, it's looking pretty good. I've taken a bit too much off the front. It's a bit thicker here, so just going to turn it round and do the other way to try and kind of match it. It's looking pretty good. Let's test again. So I just want to show you this. If I put these two pieces flat like this, you can see here I've got a little gap. So you've got two options. You can either adjust the angle of the walnut piece here, or you can adjust this angle here. So I'm going to try and work to kind of adjust this angle. Hopefully you can see I'm not putting it flat like this. I'm actually tipping it up a tiny bit. And I just want to make sure I'm taking the right angle off and working it back and forwards. So I've spent a lot of time now sanding this to get it right. And what I actually did, I took a bit more off here, and I took a little bit too much off, which meant that this was essentially too far back, like this. And so what I've had to do is sand a little bit off the bottom here, which brings this piece down and makes it slightly bigger, because as it comes down this bit here, obviously it moves across. So I've done that now. I've spent, you know, a fair while, probably a good 20 minutes, just sort of fettling this bit by bit so that I can get it really well lined up. And as you can see, it fits really, really well now, front and back, and everything's ready. So I'm ready now to glue this part on. Make sure your pieces are nice and clean. Now this is the last time you're going to be able to get to these faces here easily. I've got a few scratch marks in this one here. So I'm just going to go to my 120 grit paper and just give it a nice gentle sand with the grain. So up and down, up and down. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm going to put super glue on the part here. I don't want it to squeeze out if I can avoid it, so I'll try and stay fairly away from the edges. Hopefully that's enough there. Okay, and then I'm going to pop it in place and just hold that for 30 seconds. Now while that's doing, I could put a little bit of glue on here. I'm going to glue that piece down. I'm going to put a little bit just on the back here as well to make sure it sticks in the right place, and then push that nice and tightly, get it lined up against this part here. Okay, and hold that. Okay, now while that's drying, I'm going to do the same here. Again, I'm going to put a little piece on the back here. I want these two bits to hold together, and then I'm going to put some around the front. Okay, and again, we want to push this up nice and tightly up to the front, like so. Okay, so that's everything glued on there. So now we want to focus on the shaping of the car. We want to shape the whole car to get it absolutely perfect. Now, you could do this as much or as little as you like, but essentially what you want to do is go for the 80 grit paper to remove the material. Get all your shaping done with that. Then we're going to go up to the 120 grit paper. That is going to remove the scratches from all that work you've done with the 80 grit paper. And then finally, we're going to cover everything with the 180 grit paper and just go nice and slowly with the grain. Make sure you go with the grain at all times to get it really smooth and nicely finished. And once you've done all of that, then your car will be ready to put finish on. Now you need to do that not just with the car, but with the wheels as well, okay? So take your time with that. I'm going to start mine now and I'll come back to you when I've finished the car, okay? So let's go for it. Okay then, so that was a lot of work. I've shaped all over the back here, all over the front. It's getting there now. There's a few little scratches left in it. There's a little ridge there I still want to work out. But that's probably taken me something like an hour. So my advice to you is, you know, if you get fed up of sanding, I do get it, but just put it down, go and get a cup of tea, do something else, and then come back to it again, and then work it a bit more. And then if you get bored again, stop, go and do something else and come back to it. And that really is the key to just getting something just right and taking your time on it. So I'm going to work this a little bit more. I just want to get some of these ridges out here, and then we'll move on to the wheels. Okay, so let's move on to the wheels. Now, it's important with the wheels that when you've got the wheel inserts, these have to fit in here really perfectly. And as you can see, they're probably a bit too tight at the moment. So what you need to do is make sure the edges of these are really clean and the edges of your wheels are really clean. So what I suggest you do is get a piece of your 80 grit sandpaper, just tear off a little corner, maybe fold it like this, and then you can get inside the wheel like this and start cleaning out that edge. And what you're trying to do is round the edge of the wheel here. You want to round it over. Okay, so I'm just going to do that first, and just take your time with this. Make sure it's done really properly. It takes a little while, but kind of good fun as well, I think. So, okay, so I'm going to go over with the 80 grit, around the outside of the wheel like that, and then the inside. You want to get round the inside like this. Okay, so just keep working. It's pretty tricky, this bit, but you know, just bit by bit by bit, and you'll get there. Okay, pretty happy with that. I'm going to get my block again, because now what I want to do is shape this edge here. I want to take this corner off. So I'm going to put it at a 45-degree angle like this, pull the wheel downwards and pull it forward like this as I go. So down, 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 down. Just keep going like this, round and round and round, until you've got a nice profile that you're happy with and it's gone around the whole wheel. You can see already I've taken the sharp edge off, and that's the key part. You can stop there, or you can keep going and make it nicely rounded all the way around. It's up to you. Okay, then I'm going to go on the wheel itself now. I'm going to take off any rough spots on the wheel itself. Okay, that feels pretty good. Now I'm going to move on to the 120 grit. Okay, that's one wheel looking pretty good. So now then, what you want to do is get one of these inserts and just double check that it does fit in there properly. So you can see these are 3D printed parts. We do here ourselves. So what I'm going to do is just get some sandpaper and just make sure there's no rough spots on the edge of this part here. So I'm just going to rub it around nice and gentle. Try not to catch the face of it, because you'll see it's nice and shiny, and that's kind of the bit that you want. And you might find, you see here, like the layers themselves actually can split off. So let's just pull those off, get those out of the way. That's what we're trying to do really by sanding it, is just to make sure we've got all of that off there. Now you can see now that's looking pretty good. I'm going to choose one of my little bits of sandpaper here, get that in the middle. If you can make it a rounded shape, it does really help. So get it in the middle here and just clean out any stuff you've got in the middle like this. Okay, so that is one part here. Now we're ready to do a test fit inside our wheel. Now be aware, when you push this in like this, you're probably not going to be able to get it out. So what you want to do is just gently place it over and see, is that going to fit? And I think yes, that is going to fit. So I'm going to pick it back out again for now. Now I'd like to go over this wheel one more time now with my 150 grit, the really smooth stuff, sorry, the 180 grit, the really smooth stuff, and just make sure there's no kind of sawdust stuck in there or anything like that before we put the insert inside. Okay, I've blown all the dust out of it, and now I'm going to put my 3D printed part inside and just give that a push. Oh, look at that. It fits perfectly. Now, I suggest you do this before you put the finish on any Osmo, because you can wipe the Osmo off the plastic really quite easily. But what can happen is when you push this in, it can scrape the Osmo off the inside of the wheels, and you don't want that. So that's one wheel ready. I'm going to do the other 4, and then I'll come back to you. So there, my 4 wheels done. That's my car bit done. So next then, we're on to these little components here. Now you can see, again, they've got some little bits of string on them again from the printing process. You can just kind of pull those off on these bits. So just do that on all the little tiny bits. You can actually get a pair of scissors and cut them on the edge as well. That works pretty well too. Okay then, so next I've got my dowels here, I've got my little bits here. I just want to make sure that the edges of the dowels are sanded nicely, so keep them upright, give them a gentle sand like this. But we're going to start off like this. So we're going to get one of the washers, put it onto the axle like this. We're going to get one of the wheels, and then we want to push that through. Now, you see the dowel comes all the way through. Of course, you can have it like that if you want, but they're designed so that these little hubcaps here can just pop into the middle like that. So what you want is the hubcap to go all the way in and fit nicely, and then the axle to go in on top of it. Now, I'm pretty happy with this, so I'm just going to pop that in there and then push the washer and just leave a little bit away. Can you see that? A little bit away there from the wheel. Show closer. Yeah, just a little gap. Okay, now we can pop that onto the car like so. Put the other washer on. Now, if they don't fit well enough, you can always just sand the edge of the dowel to get them to fit, but usually a good push on with your nails should be good enough. Okay, there we go. Okay, and then I've got the other wheel to pop on like so, like that. Now you see it's pushed the insert out into my hand, so I'm just going to leave that here for now. So you can see really, it depends how wide you want the wheels at the back to be, but I think I'm going to take a little bit off mine. So let's just do the same for the front. Okay, so this is our car coming together now. Now I think I want my wheels to be kind of like this, but you don't want them too tight else they won't turn. So you just need a little bit like that. So you can see on mine, I've got a little bit of dowel sticking out here at the back. And then at the front, if I get those about where I want them, I've got a little bit sticking out here, tiny bit there. So we want to take off a little bit of this dowel here. So let's just mark on there with a pencil. Okay, let's pull it all apart again. Careful you don't lose your washers and things like that. So I've got a tiny pencil mark here, just need to sand that back. The same with this one, just a little bit less. Now don't forget, you need to allow room. These are about 2 millimeters thick, the little hubcaps. So you need to allow rough room for 2 hubcaps. So it's this distance plus 2 hubcaps. So it's actually more like about here that we need to sand down to. Now obviously you can cut that off, or you can sand it, or you can leave them wider if that's how you want your car, of course. That's fine too. So on this one, I'm going to cut it down to there. Okay, so just keep it nice and straight up in the air and just go for it. Now that we are at this point, the only thing we've got left to do now is our little man here. So we just need to check that he's going to fit. And you'll see you've got this little ball here with a hole in him. And the dowel is going to fit inside this hole here like this. And that's going to push on in there. And then he's going to sit in his chair like this. Now you can see on my car here, in my opinion, he's way too high up. Okay, so it took me a while to get that down, but I've got it down now. And I think he's just perfect sitting in there. Okay, so the next part then is applying finish. So let's move on to that. We are going to be using this stuff. This is called Osmo. This is a mixture of wax and oil and a little bit of a solvent to help it set. It's kid safe, pet safe, and it never peels or flakes or blisters or anything like that. It's really a great product. So before you open the packet, you want to give it a good smudge like this. Pour that into the pot. Now you can see there's not much in this pot here, but trust me, it is more than enough to do this little job here. Okay, so in your kit, you will have got some of these little cloths. These are non-abrasive pads from 3M. They're fantastic for applying Osmo. So what we're going to do is we're just going to dip the very corner in, you see, like this. Only the very corner. You don't want any more than that, okay? And then we're just going to apply it all over our car. Just bear in mind, though, that we're going to stick our little man on in here in the middle, and glue will not stick to the Osmo. So leave the seat. You can do the seat back, but leave a little bit in the middle here for your glue to stick to. So I'm just going to start there by going like this. I'll go across the front. Make sure you get the bits that you're not going to be able to get to with the glue. I mean the bits that you're not going to be able to get to once you've stuck your little man in place. Okay, so just wipe off any excess. Okay, so I've left a little bit for that to be stuck onto. And then we're just going to wipe it on, and you can see what an absolutely wonderful product this is. It's just fantastic. It gives this kind of permanent wet look to wood. And you can see it just makes the wood absolutely sing. I just absolutely love it. Look at that. Doesn't it look amazing? Okay, and then on the walnut especially, at the bottom here. It just makes it look fabulous. Okay, now you can see just from that tiny bit I had on my cloth there, I've done nearly this whole car. It starts to run out now though, so I'm just going to put a tiny bit like this. Just a really tiny bit, just to finish off. Now you really don't want to apply this too thickly. If you do, it'll take weeks and weeks to set, so you want to do it as thin as you can possibly get it on there. Okay, I'm just going to get inside these wheels here. If you want, you can get something to poke inside there and poke some Osmo in down inside there, but you're not going to see it, so I'm not going to bother. Okay, so that is now done. Before I wipe any excess off, I'm just going to make sure I've got all of the parts here. Okay, that's all the parts done. So the next step now, it's really important, is to get some tissue and wipe off any excess oil. So just some kitchen roll will do. So first things first, clean off any oil off your hands. It's really important. And then what we want to do is just wipe down the part. So do the part you started with first. And you can see here there's like a little glistening bit on the wood. And what we want to do is get all of that off. So just vigorously wipe it. Really make sure you take off as much of this oil as you possibly can. Okay then, fantastic. You can, of course, Osmo the axles as well. I'm not going to bother because I want the glue to stick on the end of it, so I'm not going to bother doing these axles. Okay, so once we've done that, clean up any of your cloths. Just be aware that if you get oil on cloths and scrunch them up in the bin, it's said that it can spontaneously combust. I've never seen it happen, but nonetheless, you should know about it. So what you're supposed to do is pull out your cloths like this and then just leave them somewhere to dry. And then once they're dry, you can throw them away. Okay, now you'll notice I've got about this much Osmo left. This is easily enough to do a second coat, but it will dry in the pot, so just put some cling film over it or something like that so you can save it for the next day to do another coat. So now then, we're going to start off, we're going to put our man on first of all. Now, bear in mind, I'm putting this straight onto wet oil here. Normally you, of course, wouldn't do that. But what you want to do, put a little bit of super glue on the head like this, and just stick him in place wherever you want him to go. Okay, so that's the head in place. Now I'm going to move on to the wheels. Okay then, so this part's important. We want to stick this into the wheel, but remember we need to leave a gap for our little inserts here. So I'm going to put the insert in, like so. Just press fit that with your fingers. And then I'm going to get some super glue, and I just want to pop it on the back of that so that we know it's stuck in there. And then I'm going to put some in the wheel itself, and then I'm going to put it flat on the bench so it doesn't pop out. Hopefully you can see that, and just push that into position. Okay, and then immediately turn it over and just check that that is all in position. Okay, that looks pretty good to me, and then we'll just leave that to one side to set. Okay, next then, same thing for another wheel. Okay, so that's that bit done. We can push the washers where we need them to be now and put them into our car. Looking good. The other washers, of course, go back on the other side. Okay, got room to move a little bit. And then finally, we've got the last parts of the wheels to go on here. So what I'm going to do now is put the insert inside the wheel, same as before. Just to get them nice and straight, to get them in, that's it. Same on this last wheel here. Oh, I've got a little straggly bit, let's get rid of that. Okay, that's on there. Okay, now I'm going to pop it on here like so. And it checks that that fits. Now, I'm not going to glue mine because I want to take this apart again after. But what you should do is put some glue on the inside of the wheel, just as we did before. And then push them on like this. Okay. And ladies and gentlemen, this is your very own Stirling 00 car created. I think they look absolutely fabulous, and I hope you agree. I hope you have great fun making it. Just to give you some tips and advice, I know that there's a lot of sanding, this kit, and you can use other tools as well if you want to, maybe spoke shaves or little hand planes and things like that. But honestly, it's great fun because you just get to do it bit by bit by bit and just work on it. It's not the kind of kit you can do in just 20 minutes. It's going to take a few hours. But once you've got to it here, you've got a kit that's going to last, your whole life. And I just think it's really a lovely, lovely thing. I really do. So I hope you enjoy it. Have loads of fun making it. And of course, don't forget to send me some photos of your Stirling kits. Great stuff. Thanks for watching. Bye.